Right now, you are trying to remember what you actually agreed to. You know there was a conversation. You know something was said. But the details keep sliding, like wet stone under your feet. That is not an accident. That is the point. Confusion is not a side effect of manipulation. It is the mechanism. Most people think manipulators want you angry, or scared, or in love with them. Those are useful states. But underneath all of them is something quieter, something most victims never name until it is too late. Confusion. Confusion feels like your own failure. That is what makes it so dangerous. When someone lies to you, you can point at the lie. When someone yells at you, you can point at the cruelty. But when someone confuses you, you point at yourself. You think you misunderstood. You think you forgot. You think you are the problem. That is exactly what they are counting on. Here is how it works. A manipulator will say one thing on Monday and something contradictory on Thursday. And when you bring up the contradiction, they will look at you like you are the one who is confused. Not lying, confused. There is a difference, and they know it. Lying gets challenged. Confusion gets absorbed. Psychologist George K. Simon, who spent decades studying manipulative personalities in clinical and forensic settings, documented this exact pattern. He called it a covert-aggressive tactic, using vagueness and inconsistency not as a mistake, but as a controlled tool. The manipulator stays just unclear enough that you can never fully prove what happened. And if you can't prove it, you can't confront it. And if you can't confront it, you adapt. You start speaking more carefully. You start asking permission with your tone before you even open your mouth. You are being trained. Quietly. Through fog. Why does this work so well on otherwise intelligent people? Because your brain hates unresolved information more than it hates being wrong. Psychologist Leon Festinger identified this back in 1957 in his research on what he called cognitive dissonance. When two pieces of information conflict, what someone told you and what you're now seeing, your mind experiences real physical discomfort, and the mind will do almost anything to end that discomfort. Sometimes that means rejecting the new evidence. Sometimes it means rewriting the memory of the old conversation. Sometimes it means deciding you must have misunderstood. The manipulator doesn't need to convince you they're right. They just need to keep the dissonance running long enough that your own mind resolves it for them. Think about that for a second. They don't do the work. You do. There's a second mechanism at play, one that researcher Ari Kruglansky spent years mapping: the human need for cognitive closure. Ambiguity is uncomfortable. Open questions itch at you. So when a manipulator keeps a situation deliberately unresolved, did they mean it as a joke or an insult? Was that a promise or just a suggestion your brain rushes to close the loop? And it will usually close it in whatever direction requires the least conflict. Usually that direction is you giving them the benefit of the doubt. Again, this is why the same person can apologize for nothing, promise something and later deny promising it, or explain a boundary one week and violate it casually the next, and somehow you're the one lying awake replaying the conversation. You start narrating your own doubt out loud. Maybe I misheard. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Notice something. Every one of those sentences puts the fault back on you. That relocation of fault is not incidental. It is the entire architecture. In workplaces, this looks like a manager who gives you contradictory instructions, then blames the missed deadline on your judgment. In relationships, it looks like a partner who changes the terms of an agreement and frames your confusion as insecurity. In families, it looks like a parent who denies events you remember clearly until you stop trusting your own memory around them entirely. Different rooms, same weapon. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. The confusion doesn't need to be constant. It works better in small, occasional doses. A steady stream of contradictions would trigger your suspicion. But an occasional, well-timed contradiction dropped into an otherwise normal relationship gets absorbed as a fluke. One strange moment among 100 ordinary ones. Your brain files it under exception, not pattern. Except it is the pattern. You just can't see it while you're inside it. So how do you take the fog away from someone who profits from it? You externalize the memory. Write things down. Not because you're paranoid, because a written record doesn't have feelings. and it doesn't rewrite itself under pressure the way your recollection can. Dates. Exact words when possible. What was promised, what was said, what was denied later. Second, name the pattern out loud, even just to yourself. Not, "I'm confused. Try this instead." This conversation was designed to be unclear. That single sentence moves the fault from your mind back to their intent, which is where it belonged the entire time. Third, resist the urge for immediate closure. Manipulators exploit your need to resolve ambiguity fast. You don't have to. You are allowed to sit in an unresolved question for a day, a week, as long as it takes, without collapsing it into self-blame just to make the discomfort stop. And fourth, watch for how often you find yourself apologizing for things you can't quite explain. That specific feeling, apologizing without being able to say for what, is one of the clearest signatures confusion-based control leaves behind. None of this means every miscommunication is a manipulation tactic. Most confusion in daily life is just confusion, a bad memory, a rushed conversation, a genuine misunderstanding between two people doing their best. The difference is pattern. One confusing conversation is human. A relationship built on a steady, low hum of unresolved contradictions, always resolved in their favor, is something else entirely. You now know what that fog is built from. You know it isn't your mind failing you. You know exactly who benefits when you can't remember what you agreed to. And the next time someone hands you that fog and calls it your confusion, you'll finally know whose hands built it.